All right, let's pull back the curtain on a story Vought has tried with everything they have to completely erase. You see, this wasn't just a fight. It was a clash of titans, a collision between two very, very different kinds of evil.
Yeah, Vought did everything they could to bury this one, to scrub it from the record. But some events are just too big, too important. They reveal a fundamental truth about power and malice that, well, it just refuses to be silenced.
Okay, so to really get what went down, you gotta understand the two main players in this, let's call it a philosophical cage match. On one side, you have your classic horns and claws kind of evil, the monsters you can see coming. You know what you're dealing with. But on the other side, you've got an evil that wears a suit, that smiles for the cameras and hides behind legal contracts and PR spin. And that's the collision we're about to witness.
So where does a story like this even begin? Well, you might think it starts with some big, dramatic invasion, right? Nope. It started with an audit, a catastrophic one that Vought, you guessed it, brought on themselves.
I mean, you can't make this up. Vought literally did this to themselves. They got arrogant, thought they could just peek through a door to another dimension, and surprise, surprise, the whole thing imploded. But here's the kicker. What came through wasn't another monster for them to control. Oh no. It was a purpose-built counteragent, something designed specifically to tear down things like them.
And right away, you could tell this was different. He didn't just come out guns blazing. Nah, the first thing he did was just watch, assess. He was trying to figure out the lay of the land, the moral temperature of this new place. This wasn't some mindless beast. This was cold, hard calculation.
And that calculation, it didn't take long. Observation led to a conclusion. And that conclusion, well, it led to immediate, and I mean absolute action.
So what was the tipping point? What finally made him act? It was something so quintessentially Vought. He gets a look at their own security footage and sees a hero cause an innocent person's death and then treat it like a joke, a punchline. For him, that was it. That one little piece of data was all the evidence he needed to pass final judgment on the entire rotten system.
And that's what's so chillingly efficient about him, right? It's a simple two-step process. Step 1, witness the absolute, casual cruelty of these so-called heroes. Step 2, conclude the entire system is corrupt beyond saving and needs to be torn down. No debate, no appeals, just judgment. And right on cue, the system tries to push back. Starlight, seeing what's happening, does what anyone in her world would do. She gives him a warning based on her reality. These guys are protected. It's the core belief of Vought's world. If you have power, you're untouchable.
But here's the thing. For the Slayer, that wasn't a warning to back off. It was all the confirmation he needed. It was the missing piece of the puzzle, connecting the rotten actions of individuals to the corrupt system that shields them. Suddenly, he wasn't just hunting a few bad apples anymore. He was hunting the entire orchard.
And when you decide to hunt the entire system, you inevitably end up at the top. You end up facing Vought's #1 guy, their apex predator, their symbol of absolute power. The fight itself was just a perfect contrast in styles. You had Homelander, who only knows one move, unrestrained toddler tantrum rage. He just throws all his power at the problem. But the Slayer, he's a tactician. He saw that rage not as a threat, but as a weakness to exploit. It wasn't about being stronger, it was about being smarter. And the result was, well, decisive.
Homelander, the invincible god, turned tail and fled. He ran. Vought Tower came crashing down, and right along with it, that whole carefully crafted image of invincibility was shattered into a million pieces.
But here's where the story takes a fascinating turn. Standing there, amidst the rubble of Vought's biggest symbol, the Slayer realizes something crucial. Winning the fistfight didn't mean he'd actually won the war.
Yeah, this was the moment everything changed. He understood that a physical fight just wasn't going to cut it here. Vought's real power wasn't Homelander. Tearing down a skyscraper doesn't kill an idea or a corporation. The real enemy was something you couldn't just punch into submission.
And that really is the central question, isn't it? How do you punch a legal contract? How do you use brute force against an evil that hides behind NDAs, PR spin, and $1 billion marketing department? You can't. So you have to change the rules of the game.
So he made a massive strategic pivot. He moved the fight from the physical world to a new battlefield, one where Vought's strength, their soups, was totally useless. He started a war of information, a war for their reputation, where all their secrets and lies were now liabilities. So his new mission became a ghost operation.
It was quiet, it was digital. He wasn't targeting people with fists anymore. He was targeting Vought's trust infrastructure with data. He started to dismantle the company from the inside out, one server, one leaked file at a time.
And all of this leads us to the real, profound takeaway from this whole thing. It's a conclusion that basically rewrites the Slayer's entire reason for being.
Because here's what he learned. After centuries of fighting actual demons from hell, he comes to our world and finds out that the most dangerous monsters, they don't have horns or tails, they have human faces. Just think about that for a second, that haunting idea. His entire existence, this endless war against the literal forces of hell, it wasn't the real fight, it was just practice. It was all just a warm-up for the much trickier, much more insidious kind of evil he found hiding in our boardrooms. So what's the big lesson here? It's that the monster with claws and fangs, you know what you're up against. The truly terrifying monster is the one that's protected by law, sanitized by PR, and powered by the very machinery of civilization itself. That's a much, much harder enemy to defeat.
And so, that brings us to the final, unsettling question that this whole story leaves hanging in the air. When the corruption is that deep, when the evil is woven into the very fabric of society, where does a mission of absolute judgment even end? Can it?